And Stan, speaking of the New York Jets, I just want to get right on into this because this is some breaking news. A guy who, I'd been hard on, a guy who I said maybe he should pull out of the NFL draft. It could be wise of him, and he ended up doing it, but he was likely going to be your first round pick. Dante Moore will now be not putting his name into the draft, according to reports. So, Stan, I wanted to get your thoughts since he was likely going to be your potential quarterback of the future. What do you think of this move? Do you think Dante Moore should have gone into the draft? Did you want him to be your future quarterback? What say you?
I mean, there's two perspectives to it. The first thing is for Dante Moore. I think the better decision by him would have been to go for the draft, especially in such a underdeveloped, undergrown QB class where almost all these QBs look like they need that year to sit. I think Dante Moore's inefficiencies and deficiencies, given that context, make more sense. However, next year it looks like we're going to have a much more stacked QB class, and like to a certain extent, every year's next year's class seems better, and half the time it isn't. But with how poor this QB class is looking, I just thought he had a really good opportunity to guarantee himself a top five. I mean, I really didn't see him slipping out of the top five. I think there's multiple teams that if he was available at 4 or 5, they would have just traded up and gotten him there. I think like the Rams, even like they have a top 10, or they have one of the earlier picks, maybe not top 10, but somewhere there from a trade. The Rams are a team that we've seen them develop QBs, at least pick QBs and keep them on the bench and see if they could do their thing. They're going to need a new QB sooner. They're looking at going to the Super Bowl. They want a QB who can keep this dynasty going. He could have gotten drafted by them and got in the top 15, right? So there's just I thought he was in a position where he had so many options to get that top 10, top 15 pick that by sitting out from it, I just don't see him getting picked this high next year. I think talking about his deficiencies, you just see like in the biggest moments, he tends to kind of wither away. And when we saw that against Indiana twice, we saw it against other teams throughout the season. He just hasn't looked good when the competition is good. And the NFL, there's a lot of good players in the NFL. There's a lot of great defenses in the NFL. That's you're going to a level so much higher than college. I just think that with another year of playing top teams, he's in the Big Ten. I just can't see him leaving next year as a top 10 pick type of candidate. I think it was a big mistake on his part. As a Jets fan, I am happy. As I've said, I did not think he would be a great pick. I think the Dante Moore prospect as like a second rounder or late first round for a team like the Sean McVay Rams, who have that flexibility and can kind of stow him away. I think Dante Moore is a good candidate for that sort of system. For the Jets to take him at 2, I think that would just put too much pressure on him way too soon. And talking about pressure, I don't think the Jets, since Aaron Glenn, he's going to be our coach next year. That looks almost definite. If he's our coach going into next year after the season he had, he's going to be on the hot seat. So even if we hear, okay, Dante Moore, we're going to draft him and sit him on the bench, the entire season, kind of like what the Giants did. What happened? Eventually, they saw the Giants coaches. They saw, hey, we need to have jobs next year. That's kind of a priority for me. Let me go and put this kid out there. And I think that's what would have happened with Dante Moore. So now I like that we're not going to look at that sort of prospect. So I think for the Jets, it's a better decision. For Dante Moore, I think he made a mistake.
Yeah, so Dante Moore, he is insanely young. He's not even going to be 21 by the end of this upcoming draft. He's still going to be 20 years old. I think his birthday is in May though, so he would have been 21 very soon after the draft. But he, the last game that we saw of him, that left a bad taste in some people's mouths. He did not look good. He looked like a young, raw prospect. Look at what we saw. We saw a bunch of turnovers. We saw a guy who wasn't comfortable in the pocket. We saw a guy who made bad decisions when the spotlight shined the hardest. Now, again, young guy, hasn't really gotten a chance to start a ton. He was a starter, and then he sat behind Dylan Gabriel, and then he was a starter this year. But when I look at Dante Moore, I don't see an NFL ready quarterback. And you mentioned it. This draft is not great for quarterbacks. Fernando Mendoza is going to be the first overall pick, and then maybe like Ty Simpson. I'm not high on Ty Simpson, but maybe Ty Simpson sneaks into the first round. After that, there's really not a lot there. And I think if you look at what the NFL has been doing with young quarterbacks, they are on a shorter leash. NFL quarterbacks have less of a chance to develop than they did before. Part of that's because of the CBAs. Part of that's because it's easier to release them. Part of that because pressures are higher. And then you add on to all of that, the New York media. I think doing that to Dante Moore would just be setting him up for failure. I don't think he would be given a good enough opportunity. And that isn't to say it's because of the Jets. I think the Giants would have the same problem, or really any big market team. There would be a ton of pressure on this young man. He wouldn't get a chance to develop. And we already are looking at him and saying, he's not really an NFL quarterback. Okay, now put him in the NFL. It's going to be even worse. It's going to be so much worse. I would much rather see us be able to look at him in the Big Ten and go, this is a really good quarterback. He's got a shot. But we're already saying before he's drafted that he's probably not ready. He's definitely not going to be ready then if you move it to the NFL level. Now, flip side of that, Dante Moore, it's really hard. And I would have hated to have made this decision. I would have stressed over it so much. If you're a top 5 pick in the NFL draft, you pretty much have to go. Because, like you said, anything can happen. We've talked about it with Drew Aller. He was a top 5 pick. He went back for another year to chase a championship, gets hurt, not going to be a top 5 pick anymore. Very likely. Crazy things have happened in the draft, but very likely. Something could happen next year. Dante Moore he gets hurt, God forbid, but that could happen. Isn't a top 5 pick anymore. He loses on a lot of money. But I do think in the long run, this was the better decision for Dante Moore, even if it means he doesn't end up with the New York Jets, even if it means, taking a further draft pick. Because maybe, yes, sure, his rookie contract is smaller. He gets taken 20th overall instead of 2nd overall or something like that. But he's more developed and he's able to actually play. He becomes respected. And maybe he's able to actually get a second contract. And that ends up getting him more money in the long run, especially with how lucrative these NFL contracts have become lately.
Yeah, one thing I do want to point out real quick, because I realized that when I said it was a bad decision for Moore, I was talking primarily financially, because he's probably going to lose about 35 million, or maybe not that high, but 25 to 30 million, depending on where he goes next year. Because I really just don't see him as a first-round prospect. I didn't want the Jets to take him anywhere in the first round this year. I think there were other guys who I'd have been happier getting in the end half or the end third of that first round. But yeah, in terms of the playing career, the career he's going to have, if he's going into 2nd or 3rd next year, it seems a lot more likely that a team like the 49ers or the Rams, one of those teams that likes to take a quarterback, groom them on the bench, then throw them out there, those teams now have more of that chance to get him.
Yeah, I wonder what his NIL deal looks like. There is a chance now with how crazy NIL has gotten, and he will be one of the bigger names in college football next year. He could end up making money on this deal. I know Ty Simpson was getting some crazy offers to come back to college, and he doesn't know what he's going to do, or he's declared, but there was talks of him maybe undeclaring or something. But we'll see what happens with all that. But yeah, Dante Moore no longer entering the NFL draft. One big quarterback name has pulled out.